Hey there, I'm Mr. K. Um, if you're watching this video, chances are you are taking AP Literature and Composition. You may be one of my students. You may be watching this in my class. You may be watching this at home if I assigned it. Or I may never have met you and you came across these videos. Either way, I hope um, they prove to be helpful for you. Um, just quick background about these videos and kind of the plan. Um, CollegeBoard gives daily videos for AP students, and they're super helpful. They're great. Um, the problem is that some people are, um, you know, planning on taking the lit exam, but they aren't in a lit course, which means they don't have access to it, things like that. Uh, so, uh, I wanted to make these videos not only for my students who I see on a daily basis, but for anyone who might need them. Um, and my email address is on the YouTube channel. If you have questions, or I said something that you have a question about, or whatever, please feel free to reach out and ask. I would love to help you. All right, so that's what I'm trying to do is help students with this stuff. So these are going to follow the College Board kind of sequence of topics, and so we start here at the very beginning, as stories tend to do. So we're going to start with this right here. We are going to identify and describe what specific textual details reveal about a character, that character's perspective, and that character's motives. That's the skill. Specifically, down here, what this lesson is going to do is explore how to formulate a thorough understanding of characters and identify the types of words used to describe them. So that's I'll always start the videos that way. Here's our objective. Here's what the lesson's going to do. All right, and again, this is straight from CollegeBoard. So if if you're sitting there thinking, I know how to do that already. That seems a little simple, right? That's great. This is where CollegeBoard starts. Is this objective and these ideas. All right, so the goals today, specifically, we're going to understand the aspects of a character to analyze and understand the types of words, spoiler alert, adjectives, used to describe characters. All right, so these two goals, by the end of the lecture, that's what I hope you are able to do more clearly. And again, if not, let me know how I can help you. Okay, so let's talk about characterization. Characterization is all about building a character, right? Using language to build a character. Now, at the very kind of basic level, we have this character here, shown by just a little stick figure. Now, if we were telling a story about this character, if we didn't tell much about what he or she experienced and thought, and what they looked like, what they felt, things like that, if we didn't introduce much, they would be very kind of flat, right? Like we see here. If we were to go a little further with this beautiful picture, you see, okay, we have some facial features coming in, and if we were to, of course, in the context of stick figures, if we were to describe them, maybe using, like we see on the right here, with some body language, again, facial features, things like that, their stance, right? We might understand a little bit more about who they are. And to me, personally, the best stories are the ones in which the characters are people I feel strongly about. I might feel positively, I might be rooting for them. I might feel like I know them inside and out. They may be a character who I hate, right? I just cannot stand. But either way, if I have a strong, sorry, those are our bells. If I have a strong response to a character, for me, those are the stories that are the most powerful for me personally, right? So, uh, how do we actually characterize characters? We do so in really three ways. We are described characters physically, emotionally, and psychologically, right? Once we have a character who is described physically, emotionally, psychologically, and done so effectively, um, that's when you start to see characters really, kind of a cliche, but jump off the page where you're like, oh my gosh, this character. Think about a time that you've maybe been watching a movie and a character has died and you have like cried, right? I'm watching a character who is not real experience a death that did not actually happen. And yet I'm responding to it emotionally. Why? Because that character, that person or creature or whatever, has been characterized in such a way that I feel something for them. And it's done with physical, emotional, psychological description, right? So those three are what we want to start looking out for in characters, right? So how do we describe them? How is that actually done? The nice thing is that, yes, the English language has a lot of parts, a lot of pieces, right? And it can be very complex and very nuanced, right? The nice thing is that we have really one main way that characterization is done, right? And it's kind of nice because you're like, well, that's kind of simple to look out for, right? So let's talk about it. First of all, here are some examples. All right, physical descriptions. A character might be described as beautiful or decrepit or delicate, emaciated, frail, graceful, handsome, sickly, tall, unkempt. Right. Of course, there are hundreds, if not thousands more. Right. When we're talking about emotions, they might be confused, empathetic, happy, kind, sad, shocked, supportive, sympathetic, terrified. Right. What are they feeling inside? And then psychologically, in their minds, they might be antagonistic or clear minded, clever, confused, driven, encouraging, rational, sensible, worldly. And again, just a few examples, right? What do they look like and what are they doing? What are they feeling in their soul? What are they thinking in their minds? How is their body and soul and mind working? How are their body, soul, and mind working? Right? That's how we do it. Now, look at these descriptors down here. What's nice is all of those words and all of the others that are not on this list have one thing in common, right? And we're going to talk about that commonality. What is it about these words that make them what they are, right? First, what I wanted you to try is here in a minute, I'm going to ask you to pause the video. All right, hit pause, and I want you to, just on your paper, if you're writing this stuff down or whatever. Sorry, uh, is hit pause and pick a character that you know from a story that you are well acquainted with. All right, and this character could be from a book, a short story, a movie, a video game, whatever. Um, select that character, and then I want you to come up with 6 descriptors. All right, 6 descriptors. For me, it was easiest to think of like 2 physical, 2 emotional, 2 psychological, 2 of each, just to get you practicing. But stop and think about, okay, this character, how are they described physically? What do they look like? What do they do? right? Then their soul. What state is their soul in, right? And then their mind. In what state is their mind, right? And I actually don't want to wait to talk about this point. All of these descriptors here, they are adjectives, right? And you might be like, well, that's simple. Of course, that's what adjectives do. They describe. Yes, right? Adjectives. We are looking out for those adjectives, those beautiful things that describe, right? So think of a character and then 6 adjectives. Again, 2 physical, 2 emotional, 2 psychological would be nice, right? Because we'll talk about this in a couple moments, but what we don't want to do is just describe them physically and leave it at that. Where you're like, man, I know what this character looks like, right? Like I have a very clear picture of them in my mind, but I have no emotional or psychological kind of context for who they are. Okay, well that's a kind of, that character's out of balance, right? And unless an author is doing that for a reason, which they very well could, we want to describe them in as many ways as possible, right? So go ahead, hit pause, right? Think of your character and then 6 descriptors, and then we'll come back. All right, go for it. Okay, so if you did that quick exercise, again, you might be sitting there and being like, well, that was easy, right? I know how to describe characters like that. Great. That's awesome. What we're trying to do is really set our minds so that when we pick up a book, right, that we are really looking for how is a character described and why? Why are they described that way, right? That's the idea. So the one I did, I chose Aslan from the Narnia series. I was really, in my mind, I was thinking Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, because that's my favorite of those stories. If you don't know the story, that's okay. But Aslan is a lion, and he is in C.S. Lewis, the author. That's Aslan is really an allegory for Jesus, and some of you might be like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't believe in that. That's okay, right? Basically, the story though, the Aslan is a lion, and he is the leader. He is like the whole movement of good versus evil. He is the leader of the movement of good, right? And they look to him constantly. So my physical, I did up here, right? And I chose. Did I choose anything off the list? I don't think I did. I tried to do other ones, but anyways, I said physically he is majestic. I love that descriptor, and that really, if you're familiar with that character, he is, right? Almost to the point of being intimidating. That when Aslan comes in, the other characters are even, I mean, the good ones, his followers, his friends, the people who love him, are really intimidated by his physical presence because he is so majestic and perfect, right? So that's how I described him physically. Emotionally, his soul, he is confident, he is loving, right? Um, and he is described, like those descriptors are expanded on a lot. And then psychologically, kind of in his mind, how his mind works, he is mysterious. There are things that he knows that other characters don't, and he doesn't reveal those things to him until the appropriate time. And he's, again, kind of those two go together. He's all-knowing, right? He has this omniscience about him, right? And so, I find myself starting to want to talk about that character and break it down. But basically, you see how this is done. Character, descriptors, adjectives. That's what we're looking for, right? When we're writing, when we're reading, that's what we're looking for, right? Is to start breaking down, who are these people, right? My teacher's making me read this story. I might as well, do it right and try and figure out who these characters are. Let me figure that out. Let me get in there and see how they work, right? So here are some common pitfalls that you want to try and avoid, right? And these work really as a reader and as a writer. But we want to make sure that we don't do a couple things. One, limit the number of descriptions you provide, right? You don't want to say, okay, if I'm writing a story, let's say, I just want to keep it to one physical, one emotional, one psychological, unless that is done like with a purpose. But don't limit, you know? Again, the best characters, the best stories are the ones where the characters you have a very clear picture of this person, right? We don't want to ignore any of the three. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure, let's think of us as readers in this case. We want to look at how an author is describing characters physically, emotionally, psychologically, right? And why are they described that way? And if one is, if a character is described emotionally and psychologically, but they're almost faceless, like we can't picture what they look like, is that for a reason? Is that purposefully done, right? Or is there something else happening, right? We don't want to just rely on synonyms. Synonyms are beautiful things, right? But we don't want to just rely on them, right? Describing a character as argumentative and combative. Okay, that's a bit redundant. Like those are basically the same thing, right? We want to try and cover as many kind of parts of a character, as many aspects of a character as we can, right? And again, cover as many bases as we can when trying to build a character, right? So those are some pitfalls. Here are some questions when we're thinking about characterization. Here are some questions we want to focus on. First, how might this character be described physically, emotionally, and or psychologically? That's what we've been talking about. How is this character described? What words can I use to describe this character? Right? If you, let's say you're writing, what words can I use to describe them? Right? And so reading a lot is the best thing you can do to like build your vocabulary and get a better idea of like, ooh, that's how a character is described. Ooh, I'm stealing that. I'm gonna take that author's idea and I'm gonna do that same thing, right? In my own way. But yeah, how can I describe a character, right? Oh, sorry. These are questions when we are trying to characterize that we can ask ourselves, right? So now let me go to the next one. Here are the goals. I always end with the goals just to kind of wrap it up and make sure we did this well. First, we want to understand the aspects of a character to analyze. So let me ask you, what three aspects of a character are we trying to analyze? And can we understand the types of words, adjectives, used to describe characters? Right? Now, on the AP Lit exam, they're not going to say what type of word is used to describe a character. And you say adjective, right? That's not what we're doing, right? Knowing that they're adjectives is only as helpful as your ability to use them in your own kind of creative process, but also to see, again, when I have a book and I open that bad boy up and I'm going at it, right? And I'm learning about these characters, right? When I see adjectives to, here's one right here. Nanny, the character Nanny, her memory. Oh, this is a character's memory of Nanny is still powerful and strong. Those are adjectives. Okay. Why? Well, what's happening? Right? Why is that done that way? What are we trying to understand about a character? And what does an author want you to understand? All right. So that is the first of many, many videos. Again, if I can help you in any way, please let me know. And I will see you next time, my friends.